Welcome back to my channel. I've got a surprise in the mail today. I'm pretty sure I know what it is, just because it's from Brownells. I've been waiting for the sear plate for my Ruger pistol, and that's exactly what it is. Volquartsen sear plate for Ruger Mk3, Mk2. So we'll do a little how-to video today about installing a sear plate on your Ruger Mk3 pistol. So here is my Ruger competition target model, Mk3. As you can see, I've got the Volquartsen grips on there. These are not the standard grips it comes with. I find these a lot better for my target shooting like I do. I love these pistols. They are great value for money. And what my major problem was, that when I was firing the pistol, when it got down to the last round of the magazine, what it obviously should do is your bolt stays back after the last shot to indicate you've got an empty magazine. This wouldn't always happen, and that was because of the broken sear plate. And it would sometimes go forward, and you would think, if you hadn't counted your rounds, that you still had more to fire. Now, if you have a look at what the full sear looks like, mainly around that upper edge, you can see that straight line. So there's the old sear. You can see the broken edge up on there. That's what would cause it to not allow the bolt to stay back sometimes. Okay, I'll give you a quick rundown on the disassembly. Most of that's fairly self-explanatory. There's just a couple of small pieces that you have to watch out for, that you make sure that they don't get lost when you're pulling it apart. The more complex side of it is once you go to reassemble everything, obviously. So if you just watch where parts come from, keep them separated, and then we'll go through everything to get it back together again. Now this is where you start with your disassembly. Just releasing that spring mechanism, lifting that up. This pulls straight down and out. If your trigger's released, your bolt should come straight out then. If it won't, like you're seeing here, it's usually because that small arm is caught just there. You can push that piece up to allow that arm to then come free. Your bolt will come out. Once your bolt's out, it's just pulling back to release the barrel off. Then you have your entire base with your trigger. So first things, if you want to take this pin out, now here's one piece that you have to watch when you're removing it. There's a small spring pin in there that keeps tension when your safety or
is on. There, just come out. You just have to watch for that when you're removing everything, because it can spring out if you're not watching where it's come from. And it's a very tiny piece that you don't really want to lose. Now the next piece that can potentially get lost as well, just underneath this arm here is another spring pin. There's the top of it. There's the spring underneath. Fairly small, as you can see. Now there's another pin just here to push that out. That will release all of your trigger. And this is probably the third piece that you can potentially lose. There's another spring and pin just there. So if you just watch for all of those. Now the last thing is the sear. The main thing you have to watch, if you can see where that spring currently is, it runs down the inside of that magazine well, just down through there. Now for the reassembly, once you've got the sear in place, it should have tension when you're pushing it towards what would be the front of your barrel. And that's correct. Now the first thing you'll be putting in is the trigger mechanism. We'll go back in place. We'll use the pin. Now just before I put the trigger mechanism back in, there is a spring down in here. If you can see that little, now that can be pulled out pretty easily. If that's out, it goes down into there and through the front. Set that in place. Just back that pin out a little. Once you have that space free in there, then you can put that first spring pin back through. Now what you have to do, that goes into there. There, that's all in place. Now if you lift this arm up, you can put that second spring pin down into place underneath it. That comes down on top of it. Now the sear, you can raise the sear plate up. There's a small hook on the bottom of that. And you'll know that's operating correctly, and I can see that sear pin is almost out. There, just get that back in place. That's correct. keep the pressure up from behind. You'll see you won't be able to push it completely down until that sear has moved down ever so slightly. And that allows that there. Now at this point you want to get your slide release. Put it on there. Get your pin and just start to work it through. Right. Now just push that pin back ever so slightly. Now the next piece you have, make sure this sharp angular piece points towards the back of the pistol. Again, just line that up so the pin will go through, and there we have it. Now you have to make sure that this piece here doesn't get caught behind that little bar there. Make sure your slide releases in correctly. Make sure you haven't lost that little pin on the back of your safety. Make sure you got that pin in place. This one here in place. Everything's good. Now at this point you can get your barrel back on. Some downward pressure. Put the slide back in. Now, this is what gives people a lot of issues when they're putting their pistol back together. What you want to make sure is this arm here is down, and that little bar there can flick forward. You usually have to push that up in there. Now this goes back in, up through the rear of the bolt. Now that little bar that was hanging down, you have to make sure it comes forward. If you can just see the tip of it. Now you have to keep the pistol tipped so that that bar comes back within this area. Keep the trigger depressed. When you close it to this point, if everything's correct, there should be that small bit of tension there, like that. Now if this piece just slides straight in and doesn't spring back out, you've got something incorrect in there. Most likely it's that little bar isn't slotted out into the right area. And whatever you do, don't lock it if you don't have that spring in place. Spring it down, it's all good. It's all reassembled, just time now. Put the grips back on. Magazine. Beautiful. Nice and clean. Tiny bit of oil just on the slide. Nothing overboard. Get that oil through. Fantastic. Ready for another day on the range.